Hi, hello everyone. Welcome again to a new video. So this is our fifth video on the core Java series, the Java basics, Java learnings we can call it. So I'm sharing Eclipse workspace. So as part of today's video, we will understand what is final in Java, what is finally, and also what is finalize. So this is also one of the interview question, especially for the newcomers, the difference between final, finally, and finalize. So we will practically understand the usage of final, finally, and finalize, as well as understanding the difference where we have to use these keywords. So I'm sharing my this particular class, which is my first Java program, and this is the class which contains the main method. So we can see this is our main method here, and what we see here is the constructor, and these constructors of this particular class has been overloaded. So this is called the constructor overloading, where we have different constructor by the same name as the name of the class, but their arguments are varying. So here in this case, it is a default constructor which doesn't take any arguments. This is the second constructor which takes one integer. This is the third constructor which takes a string. And then this is our main method. So if I simply try to execute this program, what it does is the control comes here and it prints SOP, welcome to the CreativeAgileIT. Now the very first thing we will do is understand the usage of the final keyword. So in this class, if I declare a public string and I say this is my app name and I call this is the app name online gaming portal. Okay. Now after declaring this, what I can do is I can say this is my class and this is the object, and I say okay, we will take the right practices obj and then say new. Okay. The reason we didn't use simply obj is just to kind of also share that what are the good practices. If we keep on declaring obj, so there might be a program where we forget okay what obj is all about. So when we say obj and the class name, it says this obj is the object of this particular class. So what we are doing is we are creating an object of this particular class, and after that if I say uh, this object dot sorry, this is the object dot app name, and I say app name is changed. Okay, so it allows me to change the app name. Now what we will do is if I print a SOP here and I say obj.appName, and similarly if I print this SOP again after making the changes, so what it does, and we will understand it later on. So whenever the main gets executed, the first thing it does is it prints this statement, welcome to the CreativeAgileIT. After that, we have created one object of this class and we haven't passed any arguments. So what constructor get called is this one, which is a no argument constructor. So it prints the statement first constructor call. This is our SOP, the system out println. After that, what we are doing is we are saying, hey, using this object, access the app name and assign it as a value of app name is changed. But even before that, we have printed what is the app name. So app name initially was this one, online gaming portal. After that, we made the changes and it allows us to change. So what if our program has a requirement that there are some variable, there are some names which should not be changed. So if we have such kind of a requirement, all we have to do is use this keyword, which is final. So whenever we say a variable is final by using this keyword, then this variable name becomes a constant. That means, we cannot change its value later on in the program. So this particular statement, it becomes invalid. So we can see the final field, my first Java program dot app name cannot be assigned. So this is the usage of the final keyword. So if in any questions they ask, okay, what is the final keyword in Java? So final keyword is basically used to declare before a variable name so that it become a constant. Its value cannot be changed. Now, another usage of this particular thing is, and we will just comment this one, and if we print this one, it will print the same value, online gaming portal, because we were not allowed to change the value. Now the second usage of the final is this is another class which is vehicle class, and if you have seen the fourth video, we use this particular class as part of understanding the inheritance in Java. So just to give an overview, this is public class vehicle and car is the child of vehicle, or we can say car is the subclass of vehicle. Now within the vehicle, vehicle has properties, vehicle has a model name, make, year, and vehicle type. Vehicle also has a constructor, and we are using the this keyword, which is basically the reference to the current object to initialize the vehicle class properties with the arguments which are passed in the constructor. Then we have display details method as part of the vehicle class, and we are simply printing SOPs, what is the model name, make, year, and vehicle type. Now, if we look at the child class, this child class also has a property. So who is the driver for this car class? And now car also has a constructor. It takes all these three arguments, model name, make, year, vehicle type. Also it takes the driver name. Now we are using the super keyword to invoke the constructor of the parent class, and after that we are using this dot driver name is driver name. Now if we see this particular annotation, this means this particular method display details in car class is overridden from the parent class. So method overriding is whenever we have a same method name present in the parent class and in its child classes. So this is called method overriding. Okay. And now, if we have any situation where we want a class should not be subclassed or there should not be any child classes for a class, all we have to do is we have to use final keyword here. So if this final keyword is used before the class name, all it tells is this is a final class and it cannot be subclassed, or we cannot create the child classes of vehicle. And we can see there is an error. It says the type car cannot subclass the final class vehicle. So this is the second usage. And there could be some instances where we have to make a class final, especially where we do not want the definition of the class should be changed or should be overridden by the child classes. Now, another usage is if I remove this one just to make the program compile so that we can compile this car class. Another usage is if I make this particular method as final, so what it does. So now this method has become final. So we can have a class as final. That means, we cannot subclasses. And we can also have a method of a class as final. That means, we cannot override it. So we cannot change the definition of this particular method. And if we see uh, this one here, which we have overridden, so it says cannot override the final method from vehicle. So if we have to compile this program, we will have to remove final. So these are the three usage of final which we have seen. The final as a variable to make it a constant, final as a class so that it cannot be subclassed. We cannot create the child classes for it, and final as a method so that it cannot be overridden. Now let's try to understand what is finally. So finally, in order to understand finally, we will have to use a try block, which is we will understand where it is used, and we will say catch exception E. We simply say E print stack trace, and then we say finally. Maybe we can write something in the finally as uh, all is okay here, and we will understand what we are doing. So basically, as part of the good programming practice, what we do is whenever we write a piece of code in Java, we also try to ensure that we have done a proper exception handling. So in order to ensure that the exceptions are getting caught, we use the try block. And then what kind of exception can be given by this piece of code? We are using a further catch block. Now, the difference between final and finally is final is a keyword and finally is a block. So we see there is no method argument here. So this is a block. So this is ensures that whenever there is an exception which is thrown by this particular piece of code within the try, if the exception is caught here, it will print that particular exception, and then finally block will always be executed. So if we try to run this program, so it says like, okay, welcome to the Creative Agile IT. The first constructor called as part of this one online gaming portal is printed twice, and after that it says all is okay here, because this piece of code, it hasn't thrown any exception. So that's why the control didn't came here. But even if the exception was there, finally is always executed. So there can be some instances in our program where we want to do some releases, some connection we want to release, some cleanup we want to do. So for that, finally we can try. So this always gets executed. Now we can also try it. I mean, if I try to say, let's see, we are printing this thing 2 divided by 0. And if I save this program and execute this one, okay, so let's see what happens. So basically what happens was whenever we say SOP 2 divided by 0, so it will give an exception, okay, because it's not giving a result if we try to divide 2 by 0. So the control came here, and we can also again write something here. So we can say caught exception, and if I do so, and if I execute, so basically this is what it is doing. Okay, so the control came here because this particular line, it throws an exception. The exception was caught, and it printed caught exception. It says java.lang.arithmetic exception, but see the finally always get executed. So finally is primarily used in the context where we want, like in the end, if any unexpected things occur in our program, there is a piece of code which is always executed, and we want to ensure that, okay, what is it, that we want to do if there is some happenings which is occurring in our program. Maybe we want to release some connection, do some cleanup. That is the usage of the finally. Now, another thing is the finalize. So finalize is basically a method. Like finally is a keyword, finally is a block, it's not a method, but finalize is a method. So this is our method, and this method is present in the java lang.object, and it is protected. So what we are doing is we are overriding this finalize method. So this is also to ensure that we do some cleanup as part of the finalize method. But this finalize method is called by the system.gc, the garbage collector, and there is no guarantee that this finalize method will get called. So that's why we should not rely on using the finalize. But if I try to execute, or if I try to call this method explicitly, so what we can do is we can say obj dot, and this is our finalize. So if I explicitly call, so it will execute. Okay, it is saying that we need to catch the throwable exception. So what we can do is we can say throwable, and now if I execute this particular class, so yeah, so this is what it is telling. It is telling inside finalize method, and then it has printed all is okay here. So this is all about this particular program, our fifth program on the core Java series. We learned about using the final keyword to make a particular variable as a constant so that its value cannot be changed. We also learned about making a class as final so that it cannot be subclassed, making a method as a final so that it cannot be overridden. Also, what is the usage of the finally block in the context of exception handling? That means, this particular block always get executed. So this is our code block. So sometimes this is also asked like, whether finally is a keyword or finally is a method. So finally is a block. And then lastly, we also understood what is the usage of the finalize. So in any class, we can override this finalize method because this is how it has been declared in the object class. So we can go here and we can see this is our protected void finalize, which throws throwable, and this is part of the object class. So again, like I said, this execution or calling of the finalize method is not guaranteed. It is called by the GC. So we should not use the finalize method in the higher versions of Java. So we can use some other method, or we can try on, doing the cleanup before executing the program. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks all.